Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Friday with Fenning. Today I want to tell you the story of two fences. Now, when Sarah and I moved into our 3-bedroom house in Mendlesham, the back garden was pretty small. It was basically as wide as the house and it had a fence running all the way around. But the annoying part was that our house had more land than just the fenced in section. Along the side of the house was a large grass area that I had to mow and I had to look after, but couldn't use it as part of the garden. So Sarah and I explored to see if we could extend our fence and incorporate the land at the side of the house into our back garden. You know, we'd got 3 small children at the time, and so increasing their play area would be so helpful. And the council came back and said that we could move the fence, and so I popped round to the bungalow behind our house to let Bill, the old man who lives there, know what we were planning to do. Now, to my surprise, Bill wasn't that happy and said that it was created to be an open space, and so it was illegal for us to do so. Well, I kind of explained about going to the council and made it clear that if it wasn't legal, we wouldn't do it. Well, a few days later, a letter from his solicitor arrived saying that we must not start putting up the fence while they're exploring the legalities of the situation. So we waited and nothing happened. Several months later, we contacted the council again and they assured us that it was fine. So I popped around to see Bill to let him know and then got on with arranging people to move the fence and extend our garden. We painted the fence green, and when the work was completed, I popped round again to see my neighbour and I said, "So, what do you think of our new fence now that it's up and painted?" I said it really brightly. He said, "It's like the black hole of Calcutta," he said grumpily. And during my short visit, I tried to stay positive with him, but soon left us to go back home. And over the time of living in Mendlesham, I have always cut the neighbours' lawns, and so I went round the back to mow Bill's front lawn. And as I was mowing, I heard what was like a gunshot over the noise of the lawnmower. And I looked up and Bill's big front window had shattered into tiny pieces. To start with, I couldn't work out what had happened, and then to my horror, it dawned on me that a stone must have flicked up from the mower and smashed the outside pane of his double glazed window, just days after the fence was completed. With huge trepidation, I knocked on Bill's door to apologise and explain what had happened. And I feared he was going to go ballistic at me for ruining his garden and his view with my big fence and then smashing up his house. Well, Bill came to the door and I was invited in, and actually he was very gracious. You know, I apologised and I offered to pay, but he said that his insurance would cover it. And I left not feeling quite so bad. But do you know what? From the initial conversation about the fence to when the bungalow was eventually sold a couple of years later, just after Bill had died, it was incredibly awkward. I hated having to walk past his house as the fence loomed ominously alongside his front garden, and I feared seeing him in case he would just have a go at me. Now, it was legal, it was our right to extend the fenced area, but it came at an uncomfortable cost. Now, dash forward in time a couple of months ago. One of Sarah's colleagues at her school was talking about a fence situation that she was facing. Her back garden shared the boundary with her neighbour, and for whatever reason, a large fence panel had come down, leaving them with no privacy and not a very nice view. Now, it was the neighbour's responsibility to sort the fence as the boundary belonged to him. But after asking him to sort it and him promising to do it, nothing happened. So she was starting to think about sending a shirty letter and that it was his responsibility. And Sarah, my very wise wife, suggested something different. She said, think forward 3 months when you're not talking to each other because you're frustrated with him, he's offended by your letter. You're going to wish you'd spent the money and just put up the fence yourself. And those words stuck. And a few days later, Sarah received a photo of the new willow fence that her friend's husband had put up. She found out later that the neighbour had rushed around afterwards and asked for their bank details because he wanted to pay for the work that had just been done. And you know, that positive action promoted good relationships. And it meant that there is now no bad feeling between both parties. And Sarah's friend had every right to make the neighbour sort the fence. She could have written a snotty letter and been all indignant about it, but she didn't. Instead, she chose a better way. They took proactive action to get sorted what needed doing, and it resulted in a great outcome. I like that phrase, choosing a better way, because it implies that at times there isn't a right or wrong way, but there might well be a better way. And it struck me that at times we can either fight for our rights or we can fight for good relationships. You know, fighting for our rights means it might help us get what we want, but it's often at a cost, especially relationally and emotionally. And fighting for good relationships also comes at a cost, a cost of not getting what we're owed, but the outcome can be so rewarding. Life is so less complicated when we're able to get along, to be in community together. I find it draining, so draining when relationships become tense and hostile. I lose sleep over it and it just keeps playing on my mind. But fostering good relationships is tough at times and it requires humility and effort on our part. James, the brother of Jesus, wrote about fighting for good relationships. He wrote this, he said, "You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honour." Now, I love how he highlights the benefits if we do the hard work of getting along with each other and treating each other well. It's why I love Sarah's friend's fence story. They took the initiative and put the fence up and a potential barrier came down. Now, should we ever fight for our rights? Absolutely. When it's over something important, where justice is required. But often we just end up fighting over things that really don't matter too much. That's an inconvenience to us. And in those cases, well, often the better way is fighting for good relationships. Looking back, I don't know if claiming our right to put the fence up when we did was the better way. Probably not, because I value good relationships. And it doesn't always come down to our rights versus our relationships. But when it does, you and I can have a moment where we can choose. And if you can, stop and project yourself into the future to see how your course of action might pan out, just like Sarah encouraged her friend to do. And then choose the better way. The better way will nearly always be the kind way, the proactive way of putting others first. Now, sadly, I haven't always managed to do that, and I live with regrets over broken relationships, which is why I need to put into practice what James says. That you can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoys its results only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honour. Now, where do you need to be putting in some hard work over this weekend to get along with others? What kind, undeserving act can you do to fight for good relationships? Because I believe it will be so much better in the long run. Hey, you have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.